And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We're going to talk about Brittney Griner's release from Russia. The PIAA approved name, image, and likeness for students to possibly earn money. Register donations, big CVS lawsuit. We might get to that at the end. I have it up there just in case. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I am ready.
Brittney Griner's release from Russia. You want to dive right into it? Wow, that was hesitant.
Yeah,
something else you want to talk about?
Well,
something else on your mind?
No, I'm good. I mean, I don't know what else to say that kind of hasn't been said.
Let me give some facts for you. Russia freed WNBA star Brittney Griner on Thursday in a high-profile prisoner exchange. U.S. released notorious Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout, but failed to win freedom for another American, Paul Whelan, who has been jailed for nearly 4 years. I should just mention this is the AP article, so this is not
right.
I'm hoping this is as close to the center as you
people.
can get.
People smarter than us wrote this. Is that what you're saying?
I would hope so. The deal, the second in 8 months amid tensions over Russia's invasion of Ukraine, secured the release of the most prominent American detained abroad and achieved a top policy goal for President Joe Biden, but it carried what U.S. officials described as a heavy price. Biden's administration tweeted from his account, "She's safe, she's on a plane, she's on her way home." Let me start with it.
You go first.
Here's what I will start with, because I thought a lot about this.
You go first, and then I'll clean up what you said.
Thank you. I had some friends message me, ask me what I thought about it. I think two things can be true at the same time. I think anytime an American comes home, it's a good day. And I truly believe that. So I know that there was a cost to this, and we're going to dive into it. And I'm not thrilled. But I think it can be a good day and a bad deal at the exact same time. I think those two things can be true at the exact same moment. I think this was a really bad deal. I also think it's a good day because an American comes home, regardless of what you think of that. And listen, I don't love her. Regardless of what you think of that American, it's a good day when someone gets to come home when they're stuck in another country.
Well, yes, I agree. All right, so let's delve into it. I don't know. I mean, arms dealer. He sounds like a bad guy. I don't know any more about this guy other than what you just read.
Yeah, so we had talked about this maybe like 2 or 3 months. I know you don't like to listen to me when I talk, but we had talked about this like 2 or 3 months ago. This guy is essentially, if you had to make a list of people that are probably responsible for the most deaths, and again, these are like, he's not pulling the trigger, but he is selling the weapons, the ammunition, the things that go beyond it, and he's selling them to really bad people. If you just made a list of like the people that have caused the most deaths in the last 2 to 3 decades, I mean, this guy's on the list.
How old is he?
I don't know. We looked this up last time.
Is there any chance that he's like past his prime now? He's 86.
No, I know for a fact that's not true because he was relatively young when he was first detained.
Okay. Well, okay, so we don't know that. And the Marine, what was his name? Paul
Whelan.
That he didn't get to come home, and he's been detained for 4 years. I assume his crime is just being a U.S. Marine?
They're calling it espionage, is what Russia is referring to it as.
So he was doing counterintelligence. He was a spy.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, then this seems like a horrible trade.
I'm not trying to, I understand that there are people that this is a win. Like, I get it. An American is coming home. Like I said, it's a good day. This is a really bad deal for a number of reasons that you and I have talked about before. And some are deeper than, don't get me wrong, I'm upset that Paul Whelan is still in Russia. Before Brittney Griner was detained, people should have been upset that there were, I want to set that part aside because I think that part's very obvious. No one wants Paul Whelan to be stuck in Russia.
Right.
I think the part that's the most underrated part about this and why it's a bad trade. Sometimes, like in sports, you like sports analogies. Here you go. Sometimes I
like good sports analogies, and that's all I ever give. So give it a shot. Let's see if you can live up to my standard.
I'll try, and then you can clean it up again. I think sometimes when you're making a trade, whether or not you won the trade, people are like, well, you won't know. Sometimes the trade is just what was the cost, what was the price, because now when you go to make another trade, the cost has changed forever. And
You've set precedent.
I would be worried. I would be concerned if if the cost to get a professional athlete is one of the greatest arms dealer in the history of the world, what is the cost going to be to get a diplomat, a politician, a soldier, an intelligence officer? Like, what now is the price to bring these people back?
It was funny how you worded it. You didn't say one of the biggest arms dealers. You said one of the greatest arms dealers. Like, he was really great at it. He has achieved his. It's like being a great mass murderer. Like, you are great at it.
If you read his story, I mean, there was nobody better.
No, I get
what
it.
He did.
But there's like, you're like, well, good for him. He was the best in his business.
No one can deny it. He's 55 years old, by the way.
Oh, so he's not out of his prime yet.
No.
No, I agree. And because of, well, I think it's the issue is way more complex. Like, the people that are pissed off about the things that Brittney Griner said about America, which I understand. I can also understand that she is a Black female in the LGBTQ community. So she is in the minority in all kinds of different circles. So I can understand why America hasn't been as good to her as it has been to other people. Now, she was 6'7", she was a dominant athlete, she's a professional, she financially was doing well. But just on human rights, human treatment, things like that,
right,
I can understand her frustration. And part of what makes America great is you're allowed to stand up and say these things where America might not be being great to my group right now or your group right now or whatever. And it's okay. But then when you go and she gets stuck and now we're supposed to bring her home, we are, because she's an American.
Right.
It's not like in America, you are supposed to voice your displeasure. It's not just like a right, it's kind of an obligation.
Yeah.
And that's the way the founding fathers saw it. If they think government isn't being fair, you're not just allowed to speak out, you're supposed to speak out. So it's a very complicated issue just when you're looking at Brittney Griner. To extrapolate further, where you talk about the bad trade and the set precedent, I would be petrified to be any sort of celebrity and travel to Russia, whether you're a rock star, how many rock bands are now never playing Russia again?
Well, and when you say it, you mean now more than ever.
Yeah, like because how are they? Well, you say, well, all they have to do. I mean, remember, this girl didn't murder anyone.
Right.
She was carrying marijuana, essentially. And then you're like, well, just don't carry marijuana. Yeah, they can't plant that easily. They can't be, oh, look, here's the rock star whomever. Oh, look he had 5 kilos of cocaine. The guy's like, no, I didn't. They shoved it in my pocket.
Right.
How are we going to prove that? Oh, now he's in the gulag.
My naive opinion is that you've now, like, you use the word presidents, but it's almost like one step further because you've almost made it beneficial. Like, you've almost made it worth their while now to be like, hey, if this, like, that's good business. Like, crap,
right.
Like, we can just grab somebody that's of a minority group or somebody that has a platform.
Following.
Right.
And
essentially, like, that's the return on investment if we're able to, like, figure out a way to detain these people. Like I said to you before, I understand it's complicated. I understand there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a report coming out that apparently they tried to do a 2-for-2 to get Whelan involved in the discussion. Russia came back and said they wanted to do a 1-for-1. That was just a recent report that came out. So I'm not sitting here implying that, like, the U.S. is twiddling their thumbs and, like, they didn't even try. Like, so, I'm not saying that.
Hold on, let me jump in. Are we saying that they gave us the choice and they're like Griner or Whelan?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is they wanted to do a 2-for-2, meaning we would give up 2 and they would give us Griner and Whelan. Russia came back and essentially said, like, we're not giving up Whelan, but we'll do a 1-for-1 for Griner.
Have you ever seen Bridge of Spies?
Yes.
Okay. Very good movie. I enjoyed it immensely.
Yes. So I'm not sitting here implying it's easy. I'm not saying that, like, they're just not trying. I think it doesn't, like, a lot of people right now on the airs are saying, like, well, I've never had to trade for a prisoner. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, to me, there's things that happen in the world.
Do people really have to come out and say that?
Well, the point I'm making is,
do you want me to announce I've never had to trade for a prisoner? Because you're just wondering. No. I wonder if Mark's ever done that.
I think there are things in the world where you don't have to necessarily do them to be able to look at something being like, oh, that's not a great deal.
Yeah,
or like,
I'm with you.
Like, listen, I don't know how, like, I'm trying to think of a bad example. I don't know how a vacuum cleaner technically works, but I know enough that when I look at one and it's like $500, I know that's a bad deal. Like, I know that vacuum cleaner's like, you know what I'm, and so I don't think you have to be a specialist in like geopolitical environments to know, like, this was not good day, and Americans coming home, really, really, really rough deal. You brought up an interesting point because I asked you if you had seen the Micah Parsons thing. And you brought up the point that, like, kind of the whole point of America is the ability to voice your displeasure. In other countries, if you voice your displeasure, they haul you off.
Yes.
Micah Parsons tweeted, essentially it was like, hell nah.
For those of you who don't know, Micah Parsons is a star defensive football player for the Dallas Cowboys.
He's also
he's a kid. He's a Penn State grad.
He's a Pennsylvania native.
He's Harrisburg-ish.
Yes. Yep.
And he's a dominant. He may be the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Continue.
So he tweeted that, hell nah, we left a Marine behind. And to me, it was an opinion. Like, listen, I don't go through my Twitter feed and see what Micah Parsons says to update myself on the situation. But he voiced his opinion, just like.
But if you
just did. Like, yeah, but if I did, just like millions of people on Twitter who go on Twitter to voice their opinion, he got jumped on, and within an hour, he was basically apologizing to Brittney Griner. 15 minutes later, he was basically saying, "I've talked to smarter people that I trust. I now understand the situation better." The irony is, you just said, like, listen, like, she should be allowed to voice her displeasure. It's just weird we live in this world where, like, Micah Parsons, like, in the court of public opinion, Micah Parsons was not allowed to voice his displeasure.
This is the thing. He is allowed to voice his displeasure, and it's good. And the court of public opinion isn't always right.
Sure.
And so, yeah, like,
I think he should have held his ground.
I was going to say, he voiced his opinion.
Yes.
The court of public opinion jumped. I think he is now backtracked, which is understandable. I get it. And what is he, 23?
He's a young guy.
He's a kid.
Yep.
But I'm with you. It would have been interesting tomorrow. What is today? Friday. I just didn't know what day it was for a second. If he would have stood his ground and said, listen, I'm glad an American's coming home.
Sure.
If they were picking one for one, I think they should have picked the other guy. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
And it would be hard to argue that point. I think the fact, the way he worded it with that, like, Brittney, hell no. I think if he would have worded it more eloquently and more eloquently and more, like, conversationally, like, if were we given the choice? What if he had just said that? If he put it in a question form, if they were doing one for one, were we given the choice? Did we choose Griner over the Marine, or was that all they said? Like, this is the deal, take it or leave it. If he does that, sure, there's going to be heat. Because, listen, there's lots of people who would rather have Brittney Griner home than the Marine.
The best argument that I have heard for having to get Brittney Griner back is essentially because she is a minority of the LGBTQ community. She is essentially a target wherever she is in the Russian prison system. So her life was at a higher risk, in jeopardy, more so than, say, somebody else.
Than a U.S. Marine?
Dude, listen, I am playing devil's advocate here. I'm trying to be as down the center as I can be.
I get why someone could extrapolate that. I'm just not sure I agree.
That is the only argument that I have seen where I've kind of been like, I could see how her life could be in jeopardy more so than somebody else. But again, I don't know. I think the biggest thing when I see people's reactions and I see what's happening, I still think I think both sides can be right in this scenario, but you've got to be willing to admit the other part of it. So, like, if you're somebody who doesn't agree with the trade, I would hope you can at least admit an American's coming home from somewhere they don't need to be. And if you're on the other side and you're just saying, like, if you're attacking Micah Parsons today because he's upset the Marine didn't come home, like, you need to, like,
those are the people who are missing
like
the boat.
you need to look in the mirror as well. And there, like I said, a good day, a bad deal, I think is a very fair way of putting it. And if people have a hard time with that, then you're too ingrained into the other
No,
stuff.
I mean, it's like to make it's like the vacuum cleaner. If you are starving and someone offers you a slice of pizza and it's the last one and you're like, I'll give it to you for $10.
Sure.
You're like, why would I pay $10 for a slice of pizza? Because you're starving.
Sure.
And you're like, okay. And it's a bad deal, but at the moment I need it. Right. So I'm sure that's kind of how the Biden administration feels right now. Unfortunately, I mean, obviously it's about politics because it's about two governments that are fighting over whatever. I'm sure that I shouldn't say I'm sure. That's unfair. When you look at the two sides, which party is the party of minorities and LGBTQs, and which party is the party of the military? Mm-hmm. And if a Republican is president, is the Marine coming home? Because that's their base. Since a Democrat's the president, is Brittney Griner coming home because she represents their base? Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the ugly side of politics.
It's 100%. It's the ugly side. I think the part that, like, if I wanted to come on here and just completely destroy Biden, for me, the biggest challenge is if you can see beyond identity politics, like if you can get past the idea that obviously people are upset that Brittney Griner is detained in Russia, if you are part of the LGBTQ community, if you were her former teammate, if you are a minority, I get that. Once you get past the identity politics, to give an arms dealer to Russia at this point in time, like in the geopolitical atmosphere at this point, is like this is what it feels like as a conservative, is that identity politics won out, were more important than keeping an arms dealer out of Russia's hands.
I get it.
At maybe one of the most pivotal times in our relationship with that nation.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
It's a very, the
time. Do you know, let me ask you this. Weird. Do you know how long the great Russian arms dealer, how long was he detained?
I don't know. I can look it up for if you really want.
Because if he's been detained for like 15 years, just he doesn't even know. He probably doesn't even have Snapchat. Like all the ways that they communicate, he's probably so outdated. He's working off a fax machine.
I love that. Snapchat is what's going to keep.
Well, I don't know.
What's going to keep.
That's the first one that came to my head.
No, I understand.
I was going to say TikTok, and I thought Snapchat was funnier, and I don't know if it worked or not.
It was just ironic. I'm trying to find an exact date for you. So on the 16th of November 2010, Bout was extradited from Thailand to the United States amid protests by the Russians.
So it's been a little over a decade.
Been a little over a decade. He was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand in 2008. And then they did like a whole criminal court.
Oh, so in 2000. So it's been essentially 15 years he's been out of the game.
Decade and a half, I think, is a very fair estimate. I don't know. It's a fascinating story. I think the interesting part about it is I do think both sides can have points if they're making them reasonably. And that is, I think, why the discussion is so heavy. I think that's why it carries so much weight.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
You could look at me and say it's a great day, and I'd be like, yeah, an American came home. And you could look at me and be like, that was the worst deal America has ever made. And I'd be like, yeah, it probably was. I mean, like,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's that convoluted. The PIAA, I wanted to talk to you about this. Name, image, and likeness. The PIAA just recently said that high school student athletes will have the ability to profit off of their marketing savvy, their social media, any way that they can use their name, image, or likeness to promote a brand. There's a lot of different pieces of this that if you're a coach, you can't be involved, yada, yada, yada. So you and I can talk about those as we go along with it. I don't know how big of a deal this is going to be outside for like the top 2% of athletes in Pennsylvania, the top 3%.
You want to know where my mind went?
Your phone?
Well, no, my daughter just texted me from college. When your daughter reaches out to you from college, it gets your attention.
Okay.
Because it doesn't happen every hour.
Okay.
So this is why the midday show is almost Emmy nominated, by the way, because we look at the world so differently. So you're thinking the top 2%. You know who I'm thinking about?
Who?
Kids with wealthy parents.
Okay.
Is this now a legal way to filter money from parents to their kids without great repercussion?
You mean like would be the benefit? Taxes? Like lack of taxes?
To get
like,
it,
what are
when you are wealthy,
okay,
you start, depending on how young you are wealthy, like if you inherited daddy's company or whatever,
okay,
you start doing like inheritance planning when you're young,
okay,
because all these people, they try to get as much money out of their estate as possible into things that are sheltered.
okay,
So when they die, the family doesn't lose it to inheritance tax.
okay,
So if you are really wealthy dad, your kid is a high school, you say, kid, go out for any sport you want to. Dad has to own some sort of company. Kid goes out for cross country.
okay,
Dad's company through an NIL pays that kid $100,000 to run cross country at Podunk Central Pennsylvania High School.
okay.
Dad gets a write-off. The company gets a write-off.
Why?
And the kid gets the money.
So I'm with you. Why is it a write-off?
Aren't all these? I thought that's what they were talking about in college. Isn't it a write-off?
Well, it's advertising.
I thought
it's
for the
marketing
boosters.
dollars.
Well, yes.
Okay.
So it's a business write-off.
I see what you're saying. So it's an advertisement, but the money's going to their kid.
But the money's going to their own kid.
It's very possible. So they, in the policy, which I don't have directly in front of me, but I did read through it. In the policy, like, you can't be affiliated with the school. You can't be a coach. You can't be an athletic director. You can't be an administrator.
Okay.
A parent was not listed in the policy. So what you're describing, I'm sure, is being discussed in a handful of rooms.
There are accountants all over the state right now saying,
sure,
can we get, or forget about parents, grandparents.
Okay.
Grandpa's 74 years old,
okay,
owns this company. Now, grandpa's Uber, he's wealthy. I don't know what the limits is, because the limits is what the limits are. So grandpa is like whatever, 78 years old, and he is worth $4 million, and they know that they're going to lose this much to inheritance tax when grandpa dies, because you can only shelter so much.
Sure.
So grandpa opens a lawn mowing business, and it's called Grandpa's Lawn Mowing Business.
Okay.
And we're going to advertise for it.
Okay.
So grandpa is going to, his idea for advertising is going to be doing this through these NIL deals.
Right.
And he's got 7 grandkids scattered around Pennsylvania who play sports or who are going to play sports now.
Right.
He gives them all $50,000 a piece.
Right.
And it is just a way to funnel money out of his account. Now so he does $50,000 a piece for 7 kids, $350,000. His lawn mowing business is going to lose $349,000 this year. But lots of businesses lose money, especially at the startup.
Right. They're advertising too. I mean, everyone has an advertising budget.
Absolutely.
Do you want to give it to them, or do you want to give it to them? Because it's a very valid point. My favorite thing about that was, you will tell me a story of factual things and you won't give any details. But as you created in your mind the NIL scenario of grandpa giving his money to his kid,
named his business.
I know the name of the business. I know how much money. I know the inheritance. Like, it is unbelievable the picture you paint for me when the story is made up versus the picture you paint for me.
Sometimes it's clear to you, sometimes it's not. That is funny.
Listen,
you're like, when is it? I don't know, Thursday, Wednesday, whatever.
The point you're making is a very, very valid one. You brought up a different group of student athletes that I had not even considered. I had not thought about the rich athletes using it as a funnel down. I pictured it as the top athletes and what that would mean. So no, you're looking at it from a perspective.
Well, I think there are way more of the kids that I'm talking about than the top 1% who are going to go to a Division I. The big time recruits. Yes, they're going to make money too. And in America, they should. If for some of these private schools that travel and whatever, right. If you've got a local car dealer that if they have their sales their right. sales manager in the video or in the commercial, this high school kid, he's going to Villanova, he's staying home, some kid down from Philly, homegrown kid, he's going to Nova next year and come buy your car from me. I can see that.
The first thing that came to my mind was what a huge advantage for the Catholic and charter schools.
Oh, amen.
Here's what's funny. But then I started to think about it. And if you're a proactive public school, it actually could be a way to ward off the charter and Catholic schools. So for example, I'll use Williamsport just because they're the biggest school in our area.
Correct.
So if you're Williamsport and you were able to go to half a dozen of the largest industries, the largest companies, the biggest donors in the area, and you were able to say to them, let's say there was a pesky charter school, let's say there was Williamsport Charter that was this big thing, and you were able to go and say, hey, here's how much it would cost for our athletes to feel like it's worth staying here instead of going to the charter school to play football or play basketball. And if we give them this stipend every month, they'll post on their Instagram, they'll post on their Facebook, we'll post on our school website, we'll say, go check out da-da-da-da. I actually think this could be a way for public schools to combat the challenges. Now, it really only matters in the Pittsburgh, the Phillies, the Harry.
Right.
The central rural areas, it might not matter. It might not be the defense mechanism that it could be. But for some of these places where the charter schools are starting to take over, if you're a public school that's got your crap together and you're able to kind of jump on it, you could keep some athletes that maybe you wouldn't have been able to keep before this.
If you have a super wealthy alum or, just people who grew up there, who support the program, who are giving their money somewhere.
Right.
And
now here's the challenge. As an organization, as a school, I'm looking at all the ADs, all the coaches, everything else. As a school or organization, you have to be willing to pass the money down, not keep it for yourself. And that is the real key there. So if Williamsport High School, I'm trying to think of right now. If Wegmans donated to Williamsport High School and they gave X amount, does it stay in the school? Does it go to the property of the school, improving things, uniforms, that kind of stuff? Or are you willing to say to the student athletes, for being a member of the community, for helping push the brand of Williamsport, and you're going to help push the brand of Wegmans, if you post this on your social media, if you show up and give time in a Wegmans shirt, you get X amount. And that is the challenge as well. Administrators and schools be willing to do that. The other challenge is the PIAA going to be willing to admit that is not the school or the coaches giving money to players. They recognize that it's still coming from the NIL, the organization that's giving the money. I don't think administrations, I shouldn't point the finger. Organizations are unique in the sense that they very rarely want to pass the money down to the bottom. When they get a check, they want to use it for something within the organization itself.
Well, how about this?
Go ahead.
I mean, you've been in high schools.
Mm-hmm.
Some teenagers are wonderful human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Some teenagers are not.
Sure.
I can only imagine the really successful, entitled, the best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like a story I tell people a lot. When I taught in Baltimore, this was 30 years ago, so I hope the guy's not watching the show. But there was a kid in the school who was an undefeated wrestler.
Okay.
And I want to say he was a junior at this point.
Okay.
He was undefeated state champ as a freshman, undefeated state champ as a sophomore, and we went through the season. I don't think he ever lost that year either because I finished out the year, so if he would have lost, I would have known. And I remember a teacher saying to me, I can't stand that kid. I hope he gets his ass kicked. And if he did, and I was there, I would walk out on the mat and shake the kid's hand who beat him.
Okay.
So can you imagine the kids like that in whatever schools, that some adult who is a nice person, who's done it right, who's gone through all this stuff, shows up for work, has to hand that kid a check that's greater than their whole paycheck?
Sure. Well, it's so just to play off. Do you know who Rodney Gallagher is?
I do not.
He's one of the top recruits in Pennsylvania in both football and basketball. He goes to Laurel Highlands.
Okay. So he's not very talented.
He's very talented. He announced his first NIL deal on Wednesday. After the announcement was made, it does not. He has 99,000 followers, so he's almost at 100,000 followers on Instagram. He announced the partnership with Pavement Group. The Pavement Group has blessed me with an opportunity to help lead their philanthropic efforts by donating to nonprofit missions in Fayette County, the community that's uplifted me from the start. So it does not say how much his NIL deal is worth, but to your point, I bet you it's worth more than a lot of the teachers walking in the building at Laurel Highlands.
So you walk in, whether it's the principal, whether it's athletic director, whoever, you hand this kid a check. You're handing. And I'm not saying this kid could be great. And again, some of them are and some of them aren't.
Sure.
You have a kid who's obnoxious, who thinks he's bigger than the system, and now all of a sudden he's wealthier than the system. You're gonna have public high schools. You're gonna have private high schools where the highest paid person in the school is some 17-year-old kid. And you're gonna tell him he has to shut up and listen in class?
No, I don't disagree with you. So here, just so that we get a broader picture, Gallagher's social media accounts make no mention of the high school he attends, describing him as only an All-American athlete and WVU football commit. The PIAA guidelines attempt to insulate any NIL deal from interscholastic athletics by prohibiting students from wearing school-identifying apparel, such as uniforms or displaying a team logo in any NIL-related work. Students cannot reference the PIAA, a PIAA member, school, or its nickname. So as you're getting this NIL stuff, you can't show up.
So what's his name? Rodney what?
Rodney Gallagher.
So he can't say Rodney Gallagher from, where's he go to high school? From Laurel Highlands. He can't say that.
Correct.
He can say I'm Rodney Gallagher.
I'm All-American
Rodney Gallagher, and he can say I'm going to WVU.
Correct. The PIAA also prohibits wearing any NIL-affiliated logo, insignia, or identifying mark during team or school activities.
Oh yeah, because you'd be out on the court wearing Chico's bail bonds.
Correct.
Do you know where that's from?
No.
Bad News Bears.
Okay. There are 7 categories of off-limit products or services, including adult entertainment, alcohol, casinos, gambling, tobacco, e-cigarettes, weapons and ammunition, prescription drugs, and controlled substances. So you cannot NIL deals from those. The guidelines also restrict schools and school-affiliated personnel from involvement in NIL deals with students. That list includes booster clubs, coaches, collectives, administrators, and alumni.
Okay, first of all, so just to go back through the list, bail bonds is okay?
Bail bonds, it sounds like bail bonds are all right. I think you might have cleared it.
Chico's bail bonds. So they cannot do adult entertainment establishments?
No, they cannot do adult.
Could you see? Wouldn't that be awesome?
I mean, it's going to be interesting.
And I say that facetiously. Like,
oh, sure.
You see some kid running up and down the court, or some track kid running with a, number on the front and on the back. Yes. And that would be great.
So it's going to be interesting. This is what I think one of the challenges is. I just don't see how they're going to keep certain schools not involved in it. Because I think that's what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to say, hey, you can't, if you're a school, you can't be involved in it. I just don't see how those two things are going to go hand in hand.
No,
I don't. Okay, I'm trying. It would be like a movie star, but you're not allowed to apply any of the movies they've done to their star.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right. Well, but if you, for the stars, you don't have to say, hey, I'm Denzel Washington from this or from that. So I'm Denzel Washington. And if you are, I think where this really helps, okay, now I'm babbling. we know the PIAA's announced this. How many other states do we know?
There's other states that have done it. Like the PIAA is not the first.
You know who this helps immensely?
Who's that?
Penn State, Pitt, Temple, because if you're a kid, if you can't say your high school, now this kid is from Western PA, correct?
Sure.
And West Virginia is a suburb of Western PA. So there's a lot of West Virginia fans out in Western PA, so that's fine.
Sure.
But if you're a kid from Aliquippa and you've got a chance to go play, college football at Cincinnati or at Pitt, but you're like a high school senior and you're a stud, but you can't say your high school, and you can say, well, I'm a high school football star and I'm going to Pitt. My marketability is way higher than to say I'm a high school football star who's going to Cincinnati. And the Pittsburgh-based businesses would be like, hey, I don't care what high school you're going to. We're going to sign you up because you're going to Pitt, and we can ride this wave for your college career.
Sure.
So I think
if colleges know who they want, like if they know, like this sophomore, like we could, but see, then it all depends on who your NIL deal is with. Are they in cahoots with Penn State? Are they in cahoots with Pittsburgh?
Well, you figure Pitt and Villanova, with the money of those areas, Penn State is not, but Penn State is the whole state, and they've got the boosters everywhere. Now, if you're a stud from, and I know I would normally include wrestling in this, but I think Penn State gets, if you're a good wrestler from Pennsylvania, Penn State wants you, you're going there. I don't think they're fighting with anybody. But for these other schools, if you're a super basketball talent and you got a chance to go to Temple or you got a chance to go to St. John's.
Right. So this is my only other part, and I saved this because I wanted to ask you. I don't know, to me, when I really tried to think about how would you have done this before NIL, I began to realize, like, I think the PIAA just kind of created a rule where the rules are still the same. So what I mean by that is, let's say, I don't want to use names. Let's say my dad owns a car dealership and I'm a high school athlete and I show up and I jump in his car ad, but I don't wear any of my gear. Like I'm just Joe Schmo and I'm here to support my dad's car business. And my dad paid me $5,000. What's the difference? Like, would I have been not allowed to participate in the PIAA? I don't think so. I think you still would have been eligible. I don't think you broke anything.
Well, parents can legally gift their kids a certain amount of money. So then it would have been a gift.
Then let's say it's not a well, hold on. Let's say it's not a father and son.
Oh.
Let's say it's not a father and son.
Yeah, no, I don't think can you be a paid spokesman?
I'm not representing my school. I'm just me. Like if I'm a 16-year-old kid, I can get hired to make subs, but can I be hired to be
I don't know.
So I'm curious, like to me, a little bit of this feels like the PIAA put in groundwork, but I don't know if they gave anybody permission to do something you couldn't have already done. I feel like the athletes that I have coached could have showed up in none of our apparel, stood outside of a Subway, held a sub, and then posted it on their thing. And if Subway wanted to pay them, I don't think it would have made them PIAA ineligible.
It's a fair question. I don't know if you're right or wrong.
I don't know either. But it's an interesting one.
Which is shocking because we mostly know everything.
And it's almost Emmy-nominated.
Almost.
When it comes to PIAA name, image, and likeness, my mind immediately went to esports rather than those top 2% of athletes. I could be wrong, but I feel like that will be huge for high school kids.
And Facebook user might be even smarter than we are.
The interesting thing there is, I would assume an esports athlete has a higher chance of having a bigger following for a branding or marketing play than someone who is not an esports athlete.
I agree. It will go to esports will be big in this.
Interesting.
So all the parents who yelled at their kids said they're wasting your life away playing video games. Now the kid can depending on how polite the kid is, he can either stick his tongue out or he can give you the double bird.
So what's Jimmy's first NIL deal? What's
Good question. That is a good question.
He's been working on it, right? If not,
we're working on it now.
Yeah.
We are working on it now.
Behind the 8 ball, if not. Maybe the midday show.
We could be. Could be the midday show.
There's a story right there. Midday show co-host funnels money to son.
My oldest daughter has like way more TikTok followers than she should.
Yeah, no, you were telling me about that. And she's got something going.
And she doesn't. She's like, whatever.
Yeah.
She does it once in a while. I think she has like 500,000 or. It's bizarre.
It's something.
It's bizarre.
No, because you told me to look and I did, and it is like she has like a following going.
She's a lot. She does. She gives reactions but doesn't talk.
Yeah.
Is her niche.
That might be the best kind.
And she's got, which I don't know. I don't get that. Why would anyone not talk?
Anything else that you wanted to mention today?
Yeah, I did have
the CVS thing, but we can
have something I really wanted to mention, and I thought of this last night, and I said to myself, "What a great topic!" And I do have it, but it's too long. We can't do it today.
Was that like an elaborate tease?
I couldn't think of it at first. Then it popped into my head. Okay. And so we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay. Maybe we'll talk
or whenever.
Maybe we'll talk about the CVS thing tomorrow too, because that one.
Okay, good, because I don't know anything about.
Okay, that one's juicy. You know when you go to the register and they ask you to donate, that's what it's about.
Oh, the one where because they were in debt, so they were taking the money from that and then giving it to. Yeah, I know what you mean. In debt's not the right word. They promised money to a certain, and then they were taking donations and paying off something that they were supposed to do. And
so you do or you don't want to talk about it?
Well, no, I know the story. I don't know the This is one I heard it, but I don't know the details. Yeah. But I do know the details. It's murky.
Yeah. No, it's not.
No, it was interesting. It is all like accounting. When I heard it, it's accounting, and I can see somebody in the room going, well, what's the difference?
Sure.
And then other people in the room going, well, there is a big difference. So it's interesting. We'll get into that.
There's the CVS thing. I told you I just finished Dope Sick, which I told you I'd start on Hulu, which is about the whole opioid, OxyContin, Purdue Pharma. And then now, like, even just some of the stuff with the FDA, everything else. I'm coming to the conclusion. People just had no idea how often people lied or how often people didn't actually know what was going on. Because I'm convinced, like, 20, 30 years ago, people just did whatever they wanted to and just nothing happened. But now with like social media and technology, it's like there's a trail for everything. There's records for everything. Like, I'm convinced that people just didn't. I think people just lied all the time. And I think now we're in a day and age where, like, now you just, like, if you're Purdue Pharma, eventually people find out. Like, if you're CVS, people find. If you're FDX, people find, like, just harder to, like, get away with just boldly not knowing or lying.
You may be right. There's the other aspect of,
because there's no way people just magically became unbelievably corrupt in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, people were always
isn't
corrupt.
There? Maybe that is the question. Was it always corrupt and everyone didn't know?
Correct.
Or was there a better line or a better sense of value and integrity?
I think it's the first.
And you're probably right.
I think it's the first.
I mean, when people talk about the divorce rate and when people talk about the, I think infidelity has been around forever.
Sure. And
women just had fewer options, so they had to stay married. I don't think domestic violence is up. Right. I think women didn't have options.
Right.
So, if it is. Those are the two schools. You're in one of two schools of thought. Either society is decaying, as you said, with value system, or that people just did what they could get away with, and it was a lot easier to get away with it.
You could get away with a lot of stuff. There was you're gonna make fun of me, because of our love of Stranger Things. My girlfriend and I watched the Enola Holmes movies on Netflix. It's Millie Bobby Brown. It's Sherlock Holmes' younger sister.
Who's Enola?
Enola Holmes is Sherlock Holmes' younger sister. She is played by Millie Bobby Brown.
Which one? Who's that?
She is 11 in Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. So you just said 11, and I was like, how old are they?
Yeah.
But then if you'd have said the star, I'd have been right with you. You threw 11, I got lost. Okay, what is her real name? Millie Bob, I didn't know that.
So the main point is that she plays it all up. The main point that I was making is because these are like Sherlock Holmes, these mysteries and stuff. And as we're watching it, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, just pick up your phone and call them. But it's Sherlock Holmes. Like, there's no cell phone. Or like, I'm like, just find the DNA or just like all this stuff. So in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, people just murdered people all the time back then because there was no repercussion. I mean, the odds of you getting caught, like, you just whacked somebody and threw them in the river. I mean, there was no.
But there were only 10 people in town.
No.
And you're like, I saw Larry, I saw Bob, I saw Joe. It must have been Steve.
This is how easy it was to murder people. There were detectives just for hire on like front streets. So it'd be like, there'd be like a bank and a shoe polisher, and then there'd be a detective. And then there'd be like a bakery and another detective, because that's how many people were just getting whacked because everyone was like, you can just get away with it.
They're not gas stations, they're detective offices.
So I don't know. I was reading the CVS thing this
morning. Let me guess. She solves every one of them.
With the help of Sherlock and their crew. Yes.
Ah, so she's not as good as I thought.
Oh, she's good. She's good. She's making a name for herself despite being Sherlock's younger sister. That's how good she is.
I didn't like the way. Back to Stranger Things.
Did I explain that?
No. I didn't like the way they portrayed her in season 4.
You mean off to Stranger Things, because we were never on Stranger Things.
Well, you mentioned it, so we'll go back there. I think she's a talented actress.
She is.
I didn't like the way they did her character in the 4th season. I thought she could have been way better. I think another really talented. I mean, they had some talented kids in that show. The redheaded chick that played Max.
Yeah.
I can't think.
I don't know her name. She's about to blow up.
I think she is super. I think she was the best kid in the cast.
Well, she's about to blow up because she is in the Brendan Fraser movie, The Whale, which is, is supposedly
the greatest movie ever.
Not to just kind of keep going down this rabbit hole. The media got to see the new Avatar. Did you see this at all? So I think 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago, the media got a viewing of it, and apparently it is out of this world, according to the media.
That bad, huh?
No. Apparently, Cameron is like on another level with this movie.
What did you think of the first one?
I liked the first one. I thought the first one visually and concept was just, there wasn't anything like it. Not necessarily from the story, but from like the technology, the filmmaking. I thought it was really good.
have to see the first one again.
Okay.
I think the only time I ever saw the first one was on an airplane.
Yeah, well, which is like, I can't express this to you enough. Literally the worst. If I made a list of movies to not watch on an airplane because it would ruin the spectacle of the movie, Avatar is top 5, maybe number 1.
Are you saying the little? you don't think?
I didn't like it very much.
The tissue-sized screen on the back.
I didn't like it very much. I watched the greatest spectacle in cinema history on a screen the size of my toaster.
It was long. I knew it was long. Like, that was my first thought. This is long. I was like, well, okay, I'm stuck on a plane for how long? I can't go anywhere. I might as well knock this out now.
Okay.
I think that's where I was.
Well, there was like Variety. I'm trying to think of the other media outlets. Every single media person that got to see this basically came out and said, this is incredible. And here's the thing. They have nothing. Most of these have nothing. You know what media people like to do when they get out of a viewing? They
complain.
They like to complain because it draws clicks. They like for the media to come out and kind of be like, no, like this is, we don't know. Like he kind of pulled it off. We don't know how he did. I mean, we waited 13 years for the movie. I think it was maybe more than that. I mean, it's been a while.
You know who else was excited to talk about it?
Who's that?
Matt Damon.
Losing out on the 10%. I mean, if this
he was waiting for that good review. He was like,
damn it. If this is as good as it is, I mean, Matt Damon, what is he? He's probably laughing to himself because he's fine. Like, it's not like he's.
I hope he's laughing to himself. Because if not, he's crying, and that would suck.
There is a online, I think it's a Reddit. They're trying to start a petition lawsuit because he was the face for the crypto commercial.
Oh, so trying to hook him in.
Yeah, it's kind of like for the fire fraud thing, they tried to sue the models. So these people that lost their money in the FTX stuff and the BlockFi and all that, they're trying to say, like, Matt Damon told me it was a legitimate product. And He might be getting looped into it.
That won't work.
I don't think it would.
Spokesman. That'd be like when Enron went.
Well, it didn't work for none of the like in the fire stuff. None of the models got sued. Now you have to do the sponsored post, and you have to reveal who.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
You can't just tie people in for the. I mean, that'd be like saying every employee at Penn State should be under indictment because of what Jerry Sandusky did. And that's absurd.
I'm with you. I'm just letting you know what I saw there. Quick observation. John Q is by far the worst movie for an airplane. So I'm pretty sure that this person and I were on the same plane.
Were you bawling?
That showed John Q. I was too young to fully grasp. It was good and I enjoyed it. I think I was still too young to grasp it. I think I've told you this before. There was a guy sitting like 3 rows ahead of me in the front row of the plane, and he had no sleeves. I mean, this is a man's man.
This is a man's man, and he's
sobbing on the plane over John Q.
John Q is rough.
Sobbing.
When you look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores, it's in the 50s, I think.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes I don't know how. John Q is an unbelievable movie.
It's a weird airplane movie, not just because of the sobbing. Also, it's a hostage movie. So it is like a weird airplane movie. Like if I said to you, what are the 2 things not to show on an airplane movie? One would probably be a hostage movie. And the second thing would probably be one where everyone's going to cry.
Con Air. That wouldn't be right up there too.
I'm just saying. So I do remember that. All right, that's all I got for today, unless you got something else.
Could you imagine watching and just sobbing uncontrollably on a plane?
I was 13. I was 13 or 14 on that flight.
Well, this is how cool I am on planes. Let me tell you the last thing. I have sinusitis, which is like when you have issues because you have allergies. I have really bad grass allergies. Okay. So they think that polyps develop over time from the whatever, and they cannot just develop in like. You think your sinus is here, but they're up in your head and stuff. So I've found that, and depending on where the polyps, this is a science answer that you don't care. Depending on where there are holes in all of your sinus cavities for things to drain and for pressure to balance.
Okay.
And depending on where the polyps grow, if they cover the holes, it messes up the ability for the pressure to balance itself. So there is I don't know what it's called, aerosine. I've looked it up. I will get a piercing pain right above my right in my right eyebrow.
Okay.
When the plane is descending, going up is not a problem. Coming down, it is like a knife.
Yeah.
Like scale of 1 to 10, it's a 9.5.
And you're exactly right. It is pressure. I don't know the exact. My cousin almost lost his ear. He actually might be watching the show. My cousin almost lost his ear, and ever since then, he has had issues with flying because of the.
So what I did, and I just figured out on my last flight, I sit there when they said, because I'm like, I just sit here, like I just hold my head. I try to pressure point and all this stuff, but literally I will be wiping tears. It hurts that bad. And descent is, you're like, how long is it? 25 minutes. Like so the last time, genius me says, I'm just going to take deep breaths and try to keep my head as full of oxygen the whole time. So literally for 22 minutes, I sat there, not sobbing uncontrollably, but mouth closed for 22 minutes. And every now and then I would look over at people and it worked. But you know how self-conscious you are in a plane while you're, they were burning, like my sinuses, they've not touched that much oxygen in. But that's what I have to do now for on the descent because of this. And like I think I'm just going to put a bag over my head next time so people can't see me. But it's like a slow hyperventilation.
Sure.
But it is it can't. I was just waiting, and people were so absorbed in what they're doing. Every time I'd peak, I'm just waiting for like 10 people to be staring at me, going, "What the hell is wrong with that guy?"
Sure.
But the people who were on the flight before, when they saw me holding my head and tears rolling down my face, then they would know. But yes, good times. Love flying. Good times.
I hate flying. I'm with you. I do not enjoy flying either. Thanks for watching the Midday Show.
Go watch John Q.
Sure to go.
No. What are you watching? Beautiful Girls.
I did tell Hannah. I said we have to watch Beautiful Girls.
What'd she say?
Today. She's up for it.
Because she wants to get rid of me as a friend. That's why.
Essentially,
she's ready. She's like, let's watch it. I'll hate it. I'll text him.
No, I said after holidays. I said we're supposed to watch Beautiful Girls.
After the holidays,
we're not watching it during the holidays.
Why?
You said it's depressing.
It's not a comedy. I mean, there's parts of it that's sad.
It's
sad.
a perfect cabin fever, late January, February, snow on the ground movie. Is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. So there you go. That's when we're going to watch it.
Whatever.
Right after I watch Rebound. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local
Only
news.
2 people got that joke, but it was funny. Well done. You did well.
Weis Markets, grocery rewards, gas rewards, Weis to go online, weismarkets.com. Set up your order, pick it up. They'll find it for you. Thank you to Weis Markets for being the title sponsor of the Midday Show. We'll be back tomorrow for the Friday edition.
I hope so.
So I got. Who do you guys play this weekend? Before we go, quickly.
Jersey Shore, Friday.
Jersey Shore. Ooh, okay.
The Bulldogs.
Away.
We are at the Bulldogs.
Okay. All right. Good luck.
I like Jersey Shore's gym. I like playing Jersey Shore.
I like the orange and black. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We'll see you tomorrow.